if these sanctions have to be multilateral, and they're hurtful, especially to Europeans who have proximity. But the fact is, they're necessary. So there should be no doubt in anyone's mind as to where we are on the sanctions. They're not. Somebody said, what was the statement they said? If they reduce their nuclear arsenal, then we'll lift the sanctions. Sanctions have nothing to do with their nuclear arsenal. They have to do with their military aggression. And that's where the relationship is. So I'm concerned about it, but as I've said before, I'm more concerned about what do the Russians have on Donald Trump, that he's all of a sudden flirting with the idea that he might lift those sanctions.
Has there been any discussion of legislation to codify the sanctions? At least on the House side, I know that there's been discussion on the Senate side.
I don't know of any. The sanctions exist. I don't think there should be any doubt as to whether they will be enforced. The president has to make that clear. He has to make that clear. Otherwise, Putin will be laughing all the way to the bank and also to the military front.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to ask you about non-disclosure agreements and whether you believe it's appropriate for congressional staffers who are paid by the American taxpayer to sign them to work with the administration.
Question is about non-disclosure agreements, in case you didn't hear that. No, I don't think it is appropriate at all. And what bothers me, in addition to that, is that non-disclosure agreements on the part of the administration with members of the staff of the House of Representatives is serious separation of power issue, A. B, it's in keeping with a non-transparency attitude of the administration, where they're saying no tweets from the EPA and other places, and jeopardizing the rights of whistleblowers in our system. And so transparency is a very important value that is produces better results for the American people, and what they're doing is shutting down. In fact, they want to shut you down. And I think that our press, the freedom of the press, is their biggest guardian of our democracy. And you see this being heralded around the world as a concern that other journalists have in other countries, that nationalist governments coming in there might have the same attitude. So we're all in this together about openness in government, transparency in what we do. And this non-disclosure is just another manifestation of their suppressing information. I've had conversations with our ranking member on the committee, Mr. Conyers. They're having a hearing today. I don't know that it's not on this subject, but it may be brought up there. But we definitely cannot ignore what has happened there.
Can I ask you something that you just said? You mentioned the vocabulary changed by the Republicans coming about healthcare. A lot of discussion over this use of repair. They are pushing back, the Republicans, and saying that's directed at the healthcare system, not the healthcare law. Do you buy that explanation?
Well, the healthcare system is what it is, and the legislation. If we had no healthcare system, we probably would have had a single payer with community health centers all over the country as the bulk of delivery of service to our people. But we do have a healthcare system. And some of the legislation and some of the provisions of the Affordable Care Act, we attempted to affect behavior of how doctors charge, behavior of how safety in hospitals is protected, and how we address disparities among minorities, how we address culturally appropriate approaches to health care, but also how we rely more on technology in terms of electronic medical records and the rest of that. So the legislation, in order to honor our three pillars of our three goals, which were to expand coverage, which we have done, by 20 million at least people, and improve benefits, which we have done for everyone in our country, including the 155 million who get their coverage through the workplace, and third, to a lower cost In all of these areas, we have been successful. We need to be more successful in lowering cost because, well, we have to address the prescription drugs, which are the biggest increase in our care. But the rate of growth of healthcare in our country is the lowest in the 50 years they have been measuring it. So certainly, as you expand, improve, and lower cost, you're addressing some of the systems of our healthcare. I named just a few, but the bill is fraught with things that improve. It's value, not volume. That's one of the important principles of the Affordable Care Act. Value. What is a procedure? It's not about procedures. It's about progress in the health of the person. So, in other words, if you live in a place where a person goes in and they receive care, but the care is not as valued-based as it should, and they're dismissed, and then they come back, readmittances caused a great deal of the cost, increased a great deal of the cost. So the bill, again, has as one of its priorities, value, not volume of services, progress, not a number of procedures. So that's really written into the bill. If they have any good ideas, we'd love to hear them. They've had 7 years to come up with it, and so far we hear vocabulary changes and the rest. But hopefully we can find some common ground to go forward. But we will stand our ground to protect the Affordable Care Act because we believe it is a right. Healthcare is a right for everyone, not just a privilege for the few. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not really. I know.
Yeah.
I should have. Yeah, I know. I was around. Yeah, I just heard.
She will.
Yeah.
If we lose Alex, I'll back her up.
Good. Anybody have anything
Yeah.
Totally voluntary. Not a question.
That's all I'm saying.
And then I turned the order.
I see it.
Yeah, I was like,
Well, because everybody freaked out when I have counter this is obviously Valley guy around. He's got to show up and somebody.
we start saying this is you too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no problem. So my read of it is